What do up-and-coming titles and current releases in AAA gaming have in common? Bloat. They don't all have the same exact forms of it, but it's consistent across the entire scene. Every other week brings a new round of layoffs, the push for heavier monetization, the obsession with graphical fidelity over functionality. It's all created an unsustainable status quo that teeters on the edge of a market crash, at least in the AAA space. I'd hardly call it the death of gaming. The AA and indie scene will get along just fine, and there's a solid handful of large studios that will do well enough. Regardless, there are some nasty lessons that need to be learned, lest the smaller players repeat the same big mistakes. Starting off with number 1, singular obsessions. We all know that one idiot who clings to the FPS genre and values basically nothing else. Well, AAA has a similarly annoying hard-on: realistic graphics. Fuck if it struggles to keep at a steady 12 FPS. To hell if it can't run on anything. Look at the hair follicles on your character's face. We made all the environments super photorealistic. It's like watching a movie. Isn't this fun? Ain't this cool? Aren't y'all proud? No, I'm not. I didn't want to watch a movie, I wanted to play a game. Graphics mean nothing if the game isn't playable or fun. Hell, the issue of tunnel visioning isn't limited to just graphics. There are so many other examples of developers hyping up singular elements whilst completely failing to deliver a finished product. Which leads me into point number 2, lack of quality control. While studios attempt to convince gamers that arbitrary elements and features are pushing the boundaries, some of the most basic of quality control goes unchecked. This inability to balance priorities in development has resulted in bloated development time and extensive post-launch maintenance. Every game now needs day 1 patches, some of which take over an hour to download, and then many still need subsequent patches across the following months, sometimes years. Hell, we've even had numerous high-profile launches where the game wasn't even playable. Meanwhile, comparatively big games of previous generations, some of which look and function better, can run on accessible, modest hardware. The cushioning effect of "we can patch it later" has created way too lax of a standard for launch. Which brings us to point number 3, industry overgrowth. Because all of that is merely a symptom of the larger issue at hand, that being that the AAA industry is crushing itself under its own weight. This has been a growing issue for some time, but it's reaching its apex, fueled by bullish, foolish predictions that the unprecedented 2020 growth spurt was going to continue. So studios hired entire armies of devs and projects became slush with funding, only for all that growth to be a flash in the pan, and now they're stuck with a bill. The stress of which has plagued AAA with countless problems. Constant crunch, exploding development costs, toxic work cultures, rounds upon rounds of layoffs, entire studios closing and teams gutted, insidious monetization schemes, yet countless financial failures. The hobby as a whole is becoming more expensive by the day, yet now we're at a point where there are developers and publishers discussing $100 plus base launch price tags as if they're owed such a thing. Which brings us to point number 4, the death of innovation. Because what is all that for? The same handful of IPs we've known for over a decade, constant sequels have become more watered down for each entry, oversaturated genres that all play the same. It's not that there's no innovation in AAA gaming at all, it's that studios literally can't afford to innovate. If they want to survive long enough to get to the next project, they have to go for the widest audience possible, losing the niches and nuances that often made those games in the first place, losing the loyalty of core audiences and fruitless endeavors to court a new one, usually ending up with no audience period, sacrificing the heart and soul of multiple franchises for nothing, and in turn, never creating new IPs worthy of adoration. Now, none of this is going to be solved overnight. Hell, it probably won't get solved at all. AAA gaming trapped itself in a self-perpetuating death spiral and lacks the self-reflection to steer the ship from the rocks. Now again, I want to reiterate, a market crash wouldn't be the end-all for gaming. Neither am I rooting for one, but it feels more inevitable as time goes on. For most of AAA, it would be a necessary hard reset. For indies and AA studios, it would be a time of grand opportunity. But I'm not a fool, they've got their own share of issues, primarily with funding, broken promises, and burnout. yet I remain confident. They are fueled by passion, yet tampered with sensible scope and scale, bursting of creativity and artistry, striving to innovate gaming as the most unique entertainment media of our lifetime. It is all that I adore about video games. I guess all that rambling is to say, I'm frustrated, disappointed even, but I also trust my gut feeling, which is telling me it'll be alright. And with that, we've come to the conclusion of the video. Have a good day, get home safe, and thank you for tuning into Channel-VEGA!